When a scruffy stray dog named Buddy bravely approaches a police station, seeking help, he uncovers a heart-wrenching story that leaves everyone in tears. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. As his reunion with a young girl named Mia unfolds, the community comes together to confront the painful truth of abandonment and the power of love and loyalty. Write in the comments where you're watching this video from. On a rainy afternoon, the small town of Willow Creek was cloaked in a thick gray mist, the kind that wrapped around the buildings and streets like a heavy blanket. The gentle patter of raindrops against the pavement created a soothing rhythm, but for one lonely soul, the weather only deepened a sense of despair. A small, scruffy stray dog named Buddy, with matted fur and soulful brown eyes, stood outside the local police station, shivering and soaked to the bone. Buddy had been wandering the streets for days, scrounging for food and shelter, and today, with the rain pouring down relentlessly, he felt an overwhelming urge to seek help. As he sat at the entrance, his heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. He watched the officers and staff bustle inside, their conversations echoing off the walls, completely unaware of the small creature outside. Each time the door swung open, Buddy felt a flicker of hope, his tail wagging slightly at the prospect of being noticed, only to deflate when it shut again without acknowledgement. With each passing moment, the cold seeped deeper into his bones, and the ache in his stomach reminded him of how long it had been since he had eaten. Yet, Buddy knew that he couldn't give up. He had to muster all the courage he could find to make himself known. Taking a deep breath, Buddy finally stepped closer to the entrance. He was hesitant, his small body trembling not just from the cold but from uncertainty. What if they didn't want him? What if he was chased away? But the urge to seek warmth and food pushed him forward. He sat back on his haunches, looking up at the officers with big, pleading eyes, trying to communicate his desperate need for help. The world around him felt daunting, but deep down, he hoped someone would notice his plight. Inside the police station, Officer Jenkins was finishing up paperwork at his desk when he heard a soft whimper echoing through the lobby. He paused, glancing up, and was surprised to see a small dog peering in through the glass door, his sad eyes filled with fear and longing. Jenkins had always been a soft-hearted man, especially when it came to animals. He pushed back his chair and stood up, a sense of urgency stirring within him. He stepped closer to the door, his heart aching for the little creature that looked so lost and vulnerable. "Hey there, Buddy," he called out softly, trying to reassure the dog that he meant no harm. "It's okay. You can come inside." With each step he took toward the door, Buddy's eyes widened, and he took a hesitant step back. Jenkins knew he needed to be gentle, the last thing he wanted was to scare the dog away. He knelt down, making himself smaller and less intimidating, and extended his hand slowly, palm open, showing that he came in peace. Buddy, sensing the kindness in Jenkins' voice, took a tentative step forward. The smell of warmth and safety wafted through the doorway, and his instincts kicked in. He approached slowly, ears perked up, and after a moment of hesitation, he stepped inside, leaving the rain behind. As he crossed the threshold, Buddy felt a rush of relief. The station was warm, and the sounds of human chatter were comforting. It was a stark contrast to the cold, damp world outside. The other officers, noticing the commotion, gathered around to see what was happening. They exchanged curious glances, unsure of what to make of the wet and bedraggled dog. Officer Thompson, known for his gruff exterior but soft heart, crossed his arms and watched, his expression softening as he observed the scene unfold. "Looks like we've got a visitor," he remarked, trying to lighten the mood. As Buddy entered, he found himself surrounded by the watchful eyes of the officers. They knelt down, reaching out their hands to him, speaking in soft tones. For the first time in days, Buddy felt a flicker of hope. He gazed around at the kind faces, unsure if he could trust them but yearning for warmth and safety. The gentle encouragement from Officer Jenkins coaxed him further inside, and he finally settled on the floor, grateful to be out of the rain. However, as the officers approached Buddy, a collective gasp arose. They noticed a deep gash on his leg, a wound that had likely come from a struggle or an accident. The sight made their hearts ache, and concern washed over the group. Officer Jenkins carefully examined the injury, realizing that this little dog needed medical attention right away. "We need to help him," he said, urgency in his voice. "He's been through a lot." The other officers quickly sprang into action, gathering supplies to care for Buddy. They found some clean towels and began to dry him off, working gently to avoid causing him any further distress. As the warmth of their kindness enveloped him, Buddy began to relax, the tension in his small body easing. He could sense the genuine care in their actions, and it reassured him that he was in a safe place. "Who would do this to such a sweet dog?" Officer Thompson muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. The rest of the team nodded in agreement, their hearts heavy with the realization that Buddy had been abandoned and left to fend for himself. They knew that their responsibility extended beyond just law enforcement. They had to protect the vulnerable, whether human or animal. While they tended to Buddy's wounds, Officer Jenkins took a moment to look into the dog's eyes. "You're a brave little guy, aren't you?" he said softly, sensing the spirit within the small creature. Buddy looked back at him, his eyes filled with gratitude and an unspoken bond beginning to form. The kindness he had longed for was finally within reach, and he felt a connection to these humans who were caring for him. As the officers cleaned Buddy's injury, they began to discuss how they could help him further. Officer Jenkins shared his thoughts on reaching out to a local animal rescue organization that could take Buddy in and find him a permanent home. "He deserves a second chance," he said, looking at the little dog with compassion. The other officers agreed, and plans were quickly set in motion. Amidst the flurry of activity, Buddy's eyes wandered around the room, taking in the kindness of the officers and the warmth of the station. He realized that he was no longer alone. He had found a group of people willing to help him. With every gentle touch and reassuring word, the officers were not just treating his wounds, they were healing his spirit. Just then, the bell above the entrance chimed, signaling the arrival of a visitor. The door swung open, and a woman entered, shaking off her umbrella. She looked around, and her eyes fell upon the scene in the lobby. "What's going on here?" she asked, her brow furrowing in concern. "Just helping this little guy," Officer Jenkins replied, motioning to Buddy. The woman's expression softened as she approached, kneeling down to get a closer look at the stray dog. "Oh, poor thing," she said, reaching out her hand. Buddy's instincts kicked in again, but the warmth in her voice made him take a small step forward. "He's been through a lot," Officer Thompson explained, sharing the details of Buddy's condition. The woman, whose name was Mrs. Stevens, was known in the community for her work with animals. She immediately offered her assistance. "I can help with the vet bill," she said, her eyes glistening with sympathy. "Let's make sure he gets the care he needs." As the officers continued to treat Buddy, the atmosphere in the police station shifted from one of concern to one of hope. Everyone rallied around the little dog, offering their support and compassion. Buddy, sensing the love surrounding him, felt a warmth in his heart that he hadn't felt in a long time. The rain outside continued to fall, but inside the station, a sense of camaraderie blossomed. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. The officers and Mrs. Stevens quickly organized a plan to take Buddy to the vet for a thorough examination. They knew he would need more than just a bandage. He would require medical attention and perhaps even some vaccinations. With each passing moment, the bond between Buddy and the officers deepened. They were not just helping him recover physically, they were restoring his faith in humanity. As Buddy lay there, he realized that this was a turning point in his life. No longer would he have to fend for himself on the cold, unforgiving streets. He had found a place where he was loved and cared for, a sanctuary in the midst of chaos. The officers and Mrs. Stevens had become his guardians, and he felt a flicker of joy igniting within him. After finishing up their work, the officers gently lifted Buddy into their arms, careful not to jostle his injured leg. They headed out of the station, ready to take him to the vet and ensure he received the best possible care. Buddy nestled into Officer Jenkins' embrace, feeling safe for the first time in what seemed like an eternity. As they stepped outside into the rain, Buddy looked up at the sky, feeling the drops fall softly on his face. It was as if the world was washing away his past, allowing him to begin anew. In that moment, he knew he was not just a stray dog anymore, he was a survivor, and with the love and support of his newfound friends, he was ready to embrace the next chapter of his life. With every step they took, Buddy felt a growing sense of hope. The police station, once a place of uncertainty, had become a beacon of light, showing him that kindness could be found even in the darkest of times. And as he traveled toward the vet, surrounded by those who cared for him, he couldn't help but feel that everything would be okay. Inside the bustling police station, the atmosphere was typical for a rainy afternoon. Officers moved briskly about their duties, answering calls, typing reports, and discussing various cases. The rhythmic tapping of keyboards mixed with the low hum of conversations, creating a background noise that felt comforting to those who worked there. But all that changed the moment Buddy stepped through the door. The small, scruffy dog stood at the entrance, water dripping from his fur and pooling at his paws. His sad, brown eyes scanned the room, searching for a friendly face, a hint of kindness. As the door swung shut behind him, the officers noticed him, pausing in their tasks to look at the unexpected visitor. A few exchanged glances, a mix of confusion and concern evident on their faces. Who was this little creature, and what was he doing here? Officer Jenkins, known for his compassionate nature and love for animals, was the first to react. He stepped forward, his curiosity piqued. Kneeling down to Buddy's level, he spoke gently, "Hey there, little guy. Are you lost?" The warmth in his voice seemed to reach Buddy, who took a hesitant step forward, his tail barely wagging. The other officers watched intently, their eyes softening at the sight of the frightened dog. Buddy had been through a lot in his short life. He was once part of a loving home, but circumstances had forced him into the streets. He had seen things no animal should ever witness and had felt hunger and fear more times than he could count. But something about the kind officer's demeanor made him feel safe. With a deep breath, Buddy took another step closer, his instincts urging him to trust this human. The officers gathered around, intrigued by the sight of the trembling dog. They had seen their fair share of stray animals, but something about Buddy tugged at their heartstrings. Perhaps it was the way he looked up at them with such pleading eyes, or the way he seemed to communicate his desperation without uttering a single bark. The atmosphere in the room shifted from one of routine busyness to a shared concern for the small creature standing before them. As Officer Jenkins extended his hand toward Buddy, he noticed a deep gash on the dog's leg, hidden beneath the mud and fur. The sight made his heart sink. "Oh no, Buddy, you're hurt," Jenkins murmured, his voice filled with empathy. He knew this injury was serious, and Buddy needed immediate care. The other officers stepped back, giving Jenkins space to assess the situation. The urgency of the moment was palpable, and they quickly gathered supplies from the station's first aid kit. While Jenkins focused on Buddy, the other officers exchanged hushed conversations, speculating about how the dog had ended up in such a state. "He must have been abandoned," one officer suggested, shaking his head in dismay. "It's heartbreaking." Another officer added, "How could anyone do this to an innocent animal?" They were all in agreement. This was not just a dog, he was a victim of circumstances that nobody should have to face. As Jenkins carefully examined Buddy's leg, he spoke softly to him, reassuring him that he was safe now. "You're in good hands, I promise," he said, as he began cleaning the wound. Buddy winced but remained still, sensing the kindness behind the officer's actions. The other officers watched in silence, feeling a mix of compassion and determination. They knew they had to do everything in their power to help this little dog. With the bandage secured, Buddy looked up at Jenkins, his eyes filled with gratitude. It was a silent exchange, but it spoke volumes about the bond forming between them. Jenkins smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest as he patted Buddy gently. "You're a brave little guy, aren't you?" he said. In that moment, Buddy's tail gave a tentative wag, as if he understood that he was no longer alone. The situation, however, was far from resolved. As Buddy received the attention he so desperately needed, the officers began discussing the next steps. They were determined to find out where Buddy had come from and how he had been injured. Someone suggested reaching out to local animal shelters to see if anyone had reported a missing dog. Others contemplated posting on social media, hoping that someone might recognize him. Just then, the sound of laughter echoed from outside the station, breaking the solemn atmosphere. The officers turned their heads, curious about the source of the noise. Moments later, the door swung open, and a little girl named Mia rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. "I've been looking everywhere for my dog," she exclaimed, her eyes scanning the room. As she caught sight of Buddy, her expression shifted from joy to shock. "Buddy," she cried, her voice filled with disbelief. Mia rushed toward the small dog, her heart racing. The officers stepped aside, allowing her to approach. The room filled with emotion as everyone realized the connection between the girl and the stray dog. Mia dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I lost you forever," she sobbed, wrapping her arms around Buddy, who responded with a gentle nuzzle against her. The sight was heartwarming, and the officers exchanged glances, touched by the reunion unfolding before them. "Are you okay, Mia?" Officer Jenkins asked, kneeling beside her. "Can you tell us what happened?" Mia took a moment to compose herself, still holding Buddy close. "We were playing in the park, and I turned around for just a second. When I looked back, he was gone. I searched everywhere." The officers listened intently as Mia recounted her story, her love for Buddy evident in every word. She explained how Buddy had always been protective of her, how he would bark at strangers and stay close by her side. The bond between them was profound, and the officers couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that they had found her dog. As Mia continued to speak, the officers noticed the gash on Buddy's leg and immediately understood the urgency of the situation. "Mia, we're taking care of Buddy," Jenkins reassured her. "He's going to be okay." The little girl's face lit up with hope as she gazed into Buddy's eyes. "You're going to be all right, boy. I'm so glad I found you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. The room was filled with tears, not just from Mia, but from the officers who had witnessed the incredible bond between the girl and her dog. Mia's presence had brought a new energy to the police station, and the officers rallied around her, determined to ensure that both she and Buddy received the care they deserved. They quickly devised a plan to provide Buddy with medical attention and begin searching for answers about how he had ended up in such a vulnerable state. While Officer Jenkins continued to bandage Buddy's leg, another officer, Officer Martinez, took the lead in reaching out to local shelters and community groups. "We need to get the word out about Buddy and see if anyone has seen anything suspicious," she said, her voice firm and determined. As the officers worked diligently, Mia remained by Buddy's side, gently petting him and whispering words of comfort. She promised him that they would never be apart again, her love for him radiating through every touch. The bond they shared was undeniable, and the room was filled with a sense of hope. With Buddy finally stabilized, Jenkins turned to Mia and said, "You did a great job staying calm, and Buddy is lucky to have you." The little girl beamed with pride, feeling the weight of her responsibility as Buddy's protector. "I would do anything for him," she declared, her voice strong. The officers nodded in agreement, realizing that this was more than just a simple rescue. It was a testament to the love and loyalty that animals bring into our lives. They felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing they were making a difference not just for Buddy, but for Mia as well. As the day went on, more officers joined the efforts, gathering around to support Mia and Buddy. The police station transformed into a hub of compassion and teamwork, each officer contributing their skills to ensure that the little dog would receive all the care he needed. In the midst of the chaos, Jenkins took a moment to step back and reflect. The sight of Mia and Buddy together was a powerful reminder of why they had chosen this line of work. They were not just enforcing the law, they were helping those who couldn't help themselves, standing up for the voiceless, and creating a sense of safety in their community. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the officers had a solid plan in place. They would take Buddy to a local veterinarian for a thorough examination and treatment of his injury. Mia would accompany them, ensuring that the two would remain together throughout the process. "Are you ready to go, Buddy?" Mia asked, her eyes shining with determination. The little dog looked up at her, and for the first time, he seemed to understand that he was no longer alone. He had a friend who loved him unconditionally, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they prepared to leave the station, Mia held Buddy tightly, feeling the warmth of their connection. The officers gathered around, offering words of encouragement and support. "You're going to be okay, Buddy," Jenkins said, smiling. "You have a lot of people who care about you now." With hearts full of hope, they set out on the next chapter of their journey, ready to face the unknown together. The bond between Mia and Buddy would not only change their lives, but would also resonate throughout the community, reminding everyone that love knows no bounds, and that together, they could overcome anything. Officer Jenkins knelt down next to Buddy, carefully inspecting the dog's leg, which was marred by a deep gash. The rain had soaked through the dog's matted fur, and the injury looked worse than it had first appeared. Jenkins gently stroked Buddy's head, trying to reassure him as he assessed the damage. He noticed how the dog flinched at first, but then relaxed, leaning into the touch, seeking comfort. It was clear that this little creature had been through a lot, and Jenkins felt an overwhelming sense of empathy wash over him. "Hang in there, little Buddy," Jenkins murmured softly. "We're going to take care of you." His voice was calm and soothing, a stark contrast to the chaotic atmosphere that typically filled the police station. The other officers gathered around, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity, drawn in by the urgency of the situation. "I think we need to get him to a vet right away," Officer Ramirez suggested, his brow furrowed with worry. "That leg looks really bad." The officers nodded in agreement, their focus shifting from the day-to-day police work to the pressing need to help this vulnerable animal. Officer Jenkins carefully examined the cut more closely, realizing that it was swollen and likely infected. He could see the redness spreading around the wound, which would require immediate medical attention. "I'll call the vet and let them know we're on our way," he said, pulling out his phone. As he spoke, Buddy looked up at Jenkins with his big, brown eyes, full of fear and hope. In that moment, Jenkins understood that Buddy wasn't just a stray, he was a survivor, someone who had fought against the odds. The realization struck Jenkins hard, and he felt a surge of responsibility to ensure that Buddy received the help he needed. "Can you hold on a second, Buddy? We're going to make sure you're okay," Jenkins reassured him as he dialed the number for the local veterinary clinic. The other officers continued to gently pet Buddy, speaking softly to him, as if they were trying to instill a sense of calm in the frightened dog. While Jenkins waited for the vet to pick up, he took a moment to glance around the police station. The room, usually filled with bustling officers discussing cases and community matters, was now enveloped in an atmosphere of compassion and concern. He felt a wave of gratitude for his fellow officers, who understood that sometimes their duties extended beyond enforcing the law. In this moment, they were advocates for the voiceless, and it filled him with pride. After a brief conversation with the vet, Jenkins hung up and turned to the group. "They're ready for us. We need to get him there fast," he said, urgency creeping into his tone. "Let's get a blanket to wrap him up and protect that leg." Officer Ramirez quickly fetched a blanket from the supply closet, and together they gently wrapped Buddy, ensuring he was snug and secure. Buddy remained calm, sensing that these humans were trying to help him rather than hurt him. It was a small victory in a world where he had often been met with fear and rejection. With Buddy bundled in the blanket, the officers carefully lifted him, being mindful of his injured leg, and made their way to the police car. Mia watched with wide eyes, her heart racing at the thought of losing Buddy again. "Can I come with you?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Officer Jenkins looked at her, recognizing the determination in her gaze. "Of course, Mia. You can sit in the back with Buddy." The girl nodded, relief washing over her as she climbed into the car, anxious to be by her dog's side. As they drove to the clinic, the atmosphere in the car was charged with emotion. Mia reached out a small hand to pet Buddy's head, whispering soft reassurances. "You're going to be okay, Buddy. We're going to get you all better," she promised, her voice trembling with love and worry. Buddy looked up at her, his big brown eyes reflecting the trust and bond they shared. It was as if he understood that he was no longer alone. The warmth of Mia's touch and the kindness of the officers filled him with a glimmer of hope. He had endured so much, but perhaps this moment was the turning point he had longed for. When they arrived at the veterinary clinic, the officers rushed inside with Buddy in their arms. The receptionist's eyes widened in shock at the sight of the injured dog. "Oh my gosh, what happened?" she exclaimed, quickly grabbing a phone to alert the vet. "We found him outside the police station," Officer Jenkins explained. "He's got a pretty bad injury on his leg, and we need to get him treated right away." Mia stayed close, still holding onto Buddy as the vet team arrived. They carefully took Buddy from Jenkins and placed him on the examination table. The vet, a kind woman with gentle hands, examined the wound closely. "You did the right thing bringing him in," she said, looking at the officers and Mia with compassion. "This looks painful, but we can help him." As the vet prepared to clean Buddy's leg, Mia stood close by, her heart in her throat. She couldn't bear the thought of anything happening to her beloved dog. "Will he be okay?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. The vet nodded reassuringly. "He's a brave little guy, and with the right care, he should be just fine. We'll take good care of him." The officers exchanged glances, feeling a sense of relief wash over them. They had saved Buddy from the streets, and now he was in good hands. As the vet began to clean the wound, Mia watched, her heart aching for Buddy, but also filled with gratitude for the people who had stepped up to help. After the wound was cleaned and treated, the vet turned to Mia. "You've got a strong bond with this dog, don't you?" she observed, noting the way Mia stayed close to Buddy, whispering words of encouragement. Mia nodded vigorously. "He's my best friend. I can't imagine life without him." Her words were heartfelt, and the vet smiled at the connection between the girl and her dog. "Then it's a good thing you found each other," the vet replied warmly. "He's lucky to have you." As Buddy rested on the examination table, the vet explained the treatment plan. "We'll need to keep him here for a little while for observation, but once he's stable, you can take him home," she reassured Mia. Mia's eyes lit up at the thought of bringing Buddy home. "Really? He can come home with me?" "Absolutely," the vet confirmed. "Just a few days of rest, and he'll be on the mend in no time." The officers stood by, impressed by the bond between Mia and Buddy. They had witnessed many challenging situations in their line of work, but this one tugged at their hearts in a different way. The love between a girl and her dog was something pure and beautiful, a reminder of the simple joys in life. As they prepared to leave the clinic, Officer Jenkins leaned down to Buddy and gently scratched behind his ears. "You're going to be just fine, little Buddy," he said softly. "You've got a lot of people who care about you now." Mia beamed with pride, feeling a wave of gratitude for everyone who had come together to help. She leaned down and hugged Buddy, who responded with a soft whimper, nuzzling against her. In that moment, all the pain and fear they had both experienced began to fade away, replaced by a sense of hope and healing. As they stepped out of the clinic, the rain had finally stopped, and the sun began to peek through the clouds. It felt like a fresh start for both Mia and Buddy, a new beginning filled with possibilities. They walked together, hand in paw, ready to face whatever adventures awaited them. Mia looked down at Buddy and smiled. "We're going to be okay, Buddy. You're safe now, and I'll always take care of you." Buddy's tail wagged weakly, but it was a sign of his trust in Mia and the officers who had saved him. Together, they stepped into the sunlight, leaving behind the darkness of their pasts and embracing the future filled with love, friendship, and the promise of a home. As the little girl, named Mia, burst through the doors of the police station, her small frame seemed to radiate a mix of hope and desperation. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the tiled floor, capturing the attention of everyone in the room. When her eyes fell upon Buddy, sitting on the floor surrounded by officers, she gasped in disbelief. "That's him. That's my Buddy," she cried out, her voice filled with joy and relief. Mia was just 8 years old, with tangled brown hair that framed her round face and bright blue eyes that sparkled even through her tears. She wore a faded pink raincoat that had seen better days, and her worn sneakers squished against the wet floor as she rushed toward Buddy, who looked up at her with a mixture of recognition and wariness. In that moment, the atmosphere in the station shifted dramatically. The officers, who had been focused on attending to Buddy's wounds, now turned their attention to the emotional reunion unfolding before them. Officer Jenkins, kneeling beside Buddy, could see the transformation in Mia's face. The look of hope that had flickered in her eyes moments before was now replaced by overwhelming joy as she reached Buddy and dropped to her knees. "Buddy! I've been looking everywhere for you," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around the dog's neck. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she buried her face in his fur, relief flooding over her. Buddy, sensing her warmth and affection, began to wag his tail excitedly, returning her embrace as if he had been waiting for this moment for an eternity. The connection between them was palpable, and the officers felt their hearts swell at the sight of such pure love and loyalty. As Mia held Buddy close, the officers exchanged glances, each one moved by the bond they were witnessing. Officer Jenkins placed a comforting hand on Mia's shoulder. "How did you find us, sweetheart?" he asked gently, wanting to know how this little girl had managed to come to the police station at just the right time. "I saw Buddy's picture on the community board," Mia replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "I told my mom I had to come here. I just knew he would be here." She looked at the officers, her eyes wide with gratitude. "Thank you for helping him. He means everything to me." Buddy nudged her cheek with his nose, and Mia giggled, feeling the familiar warmth of her dog's love. But as her laughter faded, the weight of the situation began to settle in. "I thought I lost him forever," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I was so scared." The officers knelt down to listen, their expressions softening. Officer Martinez, who had been quietly observing the reunion, stepped forward. "Mia, can you tell us what happened? How did Buddy go missing?" With a deep breath, Mia recounted the day that had changed everything. "We were playing at the park," she started, her voice trembling. "I threw his favorite ball, and he ran after it. But then I saw something in the bushes." Her brow furrowed as she recalled the moment. "I got distracted and didn't see Buddy when he came back. By the time I looked around, he was gone." The room was silent as everyone absorbed her words. The officers exchanged knowing glances, realizing that this little girl had experienced a terrible fright. "And then what happened?" Officer Jenkins encouraged her gently. "I searched everywhere," Mia continued, her voice rising with emotion. "I called for him, but he didn't come back. My mom and I walked all around the park, but he was just gone. I was so scared he wouldn't come home. We put up posters, and I kept asking people if they had seen him." As she spoke, her eyes welled up with tears once again. The fear of losing Buddy was still fresh in her mind, and she clutched him tighter. "I couldn't sleep at night without him," she admitted, her voice breaking. "He's my best friend." The officers felt their hearts ache for Mia. They understood the bond between a child and her pet, how that love could provide comfort and joy in the toughest of times. Officer Martinez wiped a tear from her eye as she listened to Mia's story. "You were so brave, Mia. It takes a lot of courage to search for someone you love," she said softly. "And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell." Buddy seemed to sense the tension in the room and nuzzled closer to Mia, as if he could reassure her with his presence. Mia looked into Buddy's eyes, and it was as if they could communicate without words. In that moment, she realized that they had both fought through their fears to find each other again. As the room filled with emotion, Officer Jenkins cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. "Mia, we need to ask you a few more questions about Buddy," he said gently. "Can you tell us if you know how he got hurt?" Mia looked down at Buddy, who was now resting his head on her lap, his eyes soft and trusting. I don't know," she admitted, her voice small. "He was fine when we were playing. He's always been so strong and brave. But something must have happened while he was away from you," Officer Martinez added. "It's possible he got into a fight or fell while he was looking for you." A worried expression crossed Mia's face. "You don't think someone hurt him on purpose, do you?" she asked, her voice trembling. The officers exchanged glances, the reality of the situation settling in. Officer Jenkins placed a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder. "We don't know for sure, but we will do everything we can to find out," he promised. "You did the right thing by coming here. We will make sure Buddy gets the care he needs." Mia nodded, her tears slowly subsiding as she focused on Buddy. "I just want him to be okay," she said softly, stroking his fur. "He's always protected me, and I want to protect him too." The officers smiled at her determination. "You are doing a great job, Mia," Officer Martinez encouraged her. "Just by being here, you are showing Buddy how much you care." As the officers began to tend to Buddy's wounds, Mia watched intently, her heart swelling with gratitude for the people who had stepped in to help her beloved dog. They carefully cleaned and bandaged his leg, taking their time to ensure he was comfortable. With each gentle touch, Mia could feel the love and compassion radiating from the officers, and it filled her with hope. When they finished, Buddy looked up at Mia with grateful eyes, and she couldn't help but smile. "You're going to be okay, Buddy," she whispered, leaning down to give him a soft kiss on the forehead. Officer Jenkins observed the bond between the two and felt inspired. "Mia, how about we take a picture of you and Buddy? We can share it on our community board so everyone knows he's safe and back home with you," he suggested. Mia's face lit up at the idea. "Really? That would be amazing," she exclaimed. "I want everyone to see that he's home." With Buddy settled comfortably on the floor beside her, Mia posed with him, a wide smile spreading across her face. Officer Jenkins snapped the picture, capturing the joyful moment. The officers couldn't help but feel moved by the sight of such a strong connection between a little girl and her dog. After taking a few more pictures, Mia noticed a bulletin board filled with photos and stories of lost and found pets. "Can I put up a thank you poster for Buddy?" she asked eagerly. "I want everyone to know how grateful I am." "Of course," Officer Martinez replied, feeling a swell of pride for the little girl's kindness. "We can help you make one right now." With the officer's assistance, Mia gathered art supplies and began crafting her thank you poster. She wrote in bold letters, "Thank you for helping me find my Buddy," surrounded by colorful drawings of dogs and hearts. As she worked on the poster, the atmosphere in the station shifted once again. The officers shared smiles and laughter, touched by Mia's enthusiasm and creativity. They admired her ability to find joy amidst the chaos and heartbreak. When she finished, Mia stepped back to admire her work. The poster was vibrant and full of love, just like her bond with Buddy. "Can we hang it up right here?" she asked, pointing to a prominent spot on the bulletin board. "Absolutely," Officer Jenkins replied, taking a pushpin and carefully hanging it in place. "This will remind everyone about the importance of kindness and love, especially for our furry friends." Mia clapped her hands in delight, feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over her. "I can't wait to show my mom," she exclaimed, bubbling with excitement. As they finished, the officers realized that they had not only helped a dog in need but also created a memorable experience for a little girl who had shown immense courage and resilience. It was a day that would stay with them forever. Mia turned to Buddy, who was now resting contentedly beside her, his tail wagging slightly as he savored the moment. "We're going home soon, Buddy," she whispered, her voice filled with love. "And we're never going to let you out of our sight again." With the sun beginning to set outside the police station, casting a warm glow through the windows, the atmosphere felt lighter. The weight of worry and fear had shifted into a sense of hope and community, all because of the bond between a little girl and her dog. Mia's heart swelled with gratitude for everyone who had helped her reunite with Buddy, and she knew that together, they could face anything that came their way. Buddy had always been her protector, and now, she was determined to be his. As they prepared to leave the station, Officer Jenkins knelt down to Mia's level, his eyes serious but warm. "Mia, remember, if you ever need help, you can always come back here. We're like a family, and we're always here for you and Buddy." Mia nodded, a smile brightening her face. "Thank you so much." You're all heroes." The officers chuckled, their hearts warmed by her words. As Mia and Buddy walked out of the station, hand in paw, they knew they had formed a bond that would last a lifetime, one built on love, trust, and the promise of a brighter future. Mia knelt beside Buddy, her heart racing with a mixture of joy and concern. The reunion felt surreal, but the sight of Buddy's injured leg brought back the reality of their situation. As tears streamed down her cheeks, she carefully brushed the mud from Buddy's fur, trying to comfort him while the officers worked to stabilize his injury. "I thought I lost you forever," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. "I'm so glad you're safe." Officer Jenkins observed the emotional scene with a heavy heart. He could see the deep bond between Mia and Buddy, a bond that transcended words. In his years on the force, he had seen countless cases of animal abuse and neglect, but witnessing the raw love and vulnerability of a child for her pet always struck a chord within him. He knew that every stray animal had a story, and Buddy's was just beginning to unfold. With Mia's attention focused on Buddy, Officer Jenkins decided it was time to find out what had really happened. He gently approached Mia and asked, "Sweetheart, do you know how Buddy got hurt? Did you see anything before he went missing?" Mia looked up, her expression shifting from happiness to worry. I don't know," she stammered, biting her lip. "We were playing in the park, and then I saw a car pull up. Someone got out and yelled at him. I didn't think anything of it at first. I thought they were just passing by. But when I looked again, Buddy was gone. I ran home, but I couldn't find him anywhere." Mia's voice trembled as she recounted the day Buddy disappeared. "I searched for him everywhere," she continued, her eyes wide with fear. "I asked all my friends and neighbors. Everyone said they hadn't seen him. I was so scared something terrible had happened. I couldn't sleep or eat. I just kept thinking about him being alone and scared." The officers listened intently, their expressions somber. Officer Jenkins nodded, encouraging Mia to go on. "And then today, I heard a kid at school talking about a dog that was found at the police station. I just knew it had to be Buddy. I ran here as fast as I could." As Mia shared her story, a silence enveloped the room, heavy with the weight of her words. The other officers exchanged glances, a mixture of sympathy and determination passing between them. They had a responsibility to protect not only people but also the animals who depended on them for safety and care. Officer Jenkins gently said, "Mia, I want you to know that we'll do everything we can to find out who hurt Buddy. We need to know what happened so we can make sure it never happens again." Mia nodded, wiping her tears. "I just want him to be okay," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's my best friend." With a reassuring smile, Officer Jenkins pulled out his notebook. "Can you tell me what you remember about that day? Anything you noticed about the car or the person?" Mia took a deep breath, searching her memory for details. "It was a blue car, I think," she said slowly. "And the person, he looked really angry. I couldn't see his face very well because he was yelling at Buddy. I thought maybe Buddy was just barking at him, but then the man kicked him." Gasps filled the room at the revelation. The officers exchanged horrified glances, a shared understanding that they needed to take immediate action. Officer Jenkins jotted down notes, his mind racing as he considered the next steps. "Thank you for telling me, Mia. That's very important information. We're going to make sure we find that man and hold him accountable for what he did." Just then, a commotion erupted outside the police station. A group of children, who had been waiting nearby, rushed inside, their faces flushed with excitement. "We saw you." "We saw Buddy," one of the kids shouted, pointing at the scruffy dog. "We thought you lost him forever." Mia's face lit up at the sight of her friends. "You guys came to help," she exclaimed, wiping her tears. "Thank you." The children gathered around Buddy, their eyes wide with amazement. They petted him gently, and Buddy, feeling the warmth of their affection, wagged his tail despite the pain in his leg. Mia's heart swelled with gratitude for her friends, knowing they were there to support her and Buddy. One of the kids, a boy named Alex, looked up at Mia and said, "We heard what happened. We wanted to help you find him. We can search together." Mia nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. If we work together, we can find the guy who hurt him. Buddy deserves to be safe." Officer Jenkins smiled at the children's enthusiasm. "That's a great idea. The more eyes we have looking for this man, the better. But remember, we have to be careful. We don't want anyone to get hurt." Mia and her friends agreed, their spirits lifted by the promise of teamwork. They brainstormed ideas on how to spread the word about Buddy and the man who had hurt him. They decided to create posters with Buddy's picture and the details Mia remembered about the car. As they worked together, a sense of purpose filled the air. The children giggled and laughed, sharing stories of their own pets and adventures, all the while keeping an eye on Buddy, who seemed to thrive on their energy. After a few hours of hard work, they had created a colorful poster that read, "Missing, help find Buddy's abuser. Blue car, angry man." They included Mia's contact information and the police station's number. Mia took a step back to admire their work. "This is perfect," she said, a smile breaking through her earlier sadness. "If everyone sees this, they'll know what happened and can help us find him." The officers nodded in approval, impressed by the children's determination. "We'll help you distribute these around the neighborhood," Officer Jenkins said. "Every bit of information can help us catch this man and protect Buddy and other animals in the future." With the posters in hand, the group set out into the community. They split into smaller teams, with Mia leading one group while Officer Jenkins and other officers accompanied another. As they went door to door, the neighborhood began to buzz with concern and interest. Some neighbors were shocked to hear what had happened to Buddy, while others offered their help, spreading the word on social media and connecting Mia with local animal advocacy groups. The community quickly rallied together, sharing stories of kindness toward animals and their commitment to protecting them. As they reached the final street in their neighborhood, Mia felt a sense of pride swell within her. She was no longer just a scared little girl, she was a protector, a warrior for Buddy and all the animals that needed help. Suddenly, Mia spotted an elderly woman sitting on her porch, a newspaper in her lap. "Excuse me, ma'am," Mia called out, her voice hopeful. "Have you seen this dog? He's my best friend, and we need to find out who hurt him." The woman squinted at the poster, her eyes widening. "Oh dear, I did see a dog like that. Just the other day, there was a blue car parked outside my house, and I saw a man kicking at something in the bushes. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I was too scared to go out." Mia's heart raced. "What did the car look like? Do you remember anything else?" The woman nodded slowly, her memory coming back to her. "Yes, it had a dent on the side, and the man looked rough. He was wearing a dark hoodie. I thought it was strange he was parked there for so long." "Thank you. That's so helpful." Mia beamed. She turned to Officer Jenkins, who had been listening intently. "Did you hear that? It has to be the same car." Officer Jenkins wasted no time. "That's excellent information. We need to check the area again and find this man before he has a chance to hurt anyone else." As they gathered back together, Mia felt a surge of determination. "We can do this. We will find Buddy's abuser and make sure he never hurts another animal again." With their spirits high and a renewed sense of purpose, Mia and her friends returned to the police station, ready to support the officers in their mission to seek justice for Buddy. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the community, Mia knew that their efforts were making a difference. With every person they spoke to, every poster they hung, they were one step closer to ensuring Buddy would be safe, not just for today but for all the days to come. In that moment, Mia realized that the love she had for Buddy was not just about a pet, it was about standing up for what was right and protecting those who could not protect themselves. With her friends by her side and the officers backing them, she felt invincible, ready to take on any challenge that lay ahead. The bond between Mia and Buddy had transformed not only their lives, but also the lives of everyone in their community, reminding them all that compassion and kindness have the power to create change. They would not stop until they found the man who had caused Buddy pain, ensuring that love would always triumph over cruelty. Curiosity bubbled within Officer Jenkins as he and his team stepped outside the police station, ready to engage with the group of children who had gathered. Their excited whispers and pointing gestures hinted at something significant, perhaps a clue that could lead to understanding Buddy's past. As the officers approached, the kids fell silent, their eyes wide with anticipation. "Hey there, kids," Jenkins greeted them, kneeling to their level. "We heard you saw something happen to this dog. Can you tell us what you know?" The children exchanged glances, and then a brave boy with tousled hair stepped forward. "We saw a car pull up a few days ago. A man opened the door and threw the dog out, then drove away really fast," he recounted, his voice shaking slightly but filled with conviction. "We tried to help him, but he ran away." The officers listened intently, their hearts heavy with the pain of the story unfolding before them. Jenkins felt a surge of anger at the thought of someone treating an innocent animal in such a cruel manner. "Can you remember anything about the car?" he asked, hoping for more details. Another girl with pigtails chimed in. "It was a red car. A small one. I think it had a dent on the side." She emphasized her point by gesturing wildly, her hands painting a vivid picture of the vehicle. Jenkins took notes, ensuring that every detail was captured. "Thank you for telling us this. You're all very brave for trying to help Buddy," he said, giving them a warm smile. "If you see anything else, please let us know, okay?" As the children nodded, Mia stepped forward, her determination shining through. "Can I help you look for the car?" she asked, her voice steady. The officers exchanged glances, surprised by her request, but heartened by her resolve. "Of course, Mia," Jenkins replied, touched by the little girl's dedication to her dog. "We could use your help. You know Buddy better than anyone, and your presence will make a difference." Mia beamed at the officers, her hope renewed. She felt a rush of adrenaline at the thought of joining the search. "Thank you," she exclaimed, glancing back at Buddy, who sat nearby, watching the exchange with bright, attentive eyes. "All right then," Jenkins said, rallying the team. "Let's get into our cars and start looking around the neighborhood. We'll keep our eyes peeled for any red cars that match the description. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell." As they piled into their patrol vehicles, Mia sat in the back of Jenkins' car, Buddy snuggled beside her. The officers turned on their sirens as they pulled away from the station, the sound echoing through the streets. Mia looked out the window, her heart racing with excitement and determination. She was not only searching for her beloved dog, she was also on a mission to uncover the truth and bring Buddy home for good. Driving through the neighborhood, Jenkins pointed out areas where they had received previous reports of stray animals or suspicious activity. The team split up to cover more ground, each officer communicating via radio to share any potential leads. Mia watched as they scanned the streets, feeling a sense of unity and purpose with the officers. Buddy sat calmly beside her, his head resting on her lap as if he understood the importance of the moment. After a while, they reached a small park where the kids had previously mentioned seeing Buddy. "Let's check here," Jenkins suggested. "There's often a lot of activity, and we might find someone who saw the incident." As they parked the car and stepped out, Mia felt a sense of hope wash over her. She knew Buddy had been here, and maybe someone else had witnessed what happened. As they walked around the park, Mia spotted some children playing on the swings, their laughter echoing in the air. "Excuse me," Mia called out, running toward them. "Did you see a little dog around here? He's brown and white, and his name is Buddy." One of the kids stopped swinging and looked at her. "Yeah, I saw a dog like that. He was really scared and was running by the bushes over there." He pointed towards a thicket of greenery. "I saw him a few days ago, but he ran away before I could help him." Mia's heart raced. "Do you remember if anyone was with him?" she asked, desperation creeping into her voice. The boy shook his head. No, I just saw him by himself. Thank you, Mia said, turning back to Jenkins and the other officers. He was here. We need to keep looking. With renewed energy, they moved toward the bushes where the boy had pointed. Mia led the way, her heart pounding as she pushed through the foliage. Buddy, she called out, her voice echoing through the park. Where are you? Suddenly, a rustling sound caught her attention. Mia froze, her heart skipping a beat. Did you hear that? She whispered, her eyes darting around. The officers nodded, alert and ready. Jenkins gestured for them to stay quiet as they moved closer to the sound. Just then, Buddy's familiar bark broke the silence, sending a wave of relief through Mia. Buddy, she shouted, rushing toward the sound. Emerging from the bushes, Buddy appeared, tail wagging furiously. His eyes lit up when he saw Mia, and he bounded toward her, clearly excited to be reunited. You found him, Jenkins exclaimed, kneeling to give Buddy some gentle pats. Mia knelt down, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks as Buddy nuzzled into her. I missed you so much, Buddy. I thought I lost you, she cried, her voice trembling with emotion. Buddy licked her face, his way of reassuring her that he was okay. Okay, everyone, let's take a moment, Jenkins said, sensing the need for a break. The officers gathered around, sharing smiles and laughter as they witnessed the touching reunion. Mia's happiness was contagious, and even the gruffest officers couldn't help but feel their hearts swell at the sight. After a few moments, Jenkins cleared his throat. Now that we have Buddy back, we still need to find out more about how he ended up here, he reminded the group. Mia, do you remember anything else about the day Buddy went missing? Mia nodded, wiping her tears. We were at the park playing fetch, and I threw his favorite ball really far. He ran to get it, and I lost sight of him for just a moment. When I turned around, he was gone. That sounds like when he was abandoned, Jenkins said thoughtfully. We need to piece together the timeline to see if we can track down whoever did this. The officers resumed their search in the surrounding area, still on high alert for any sign of the red car. Mia and Buddy stayed close to Jenkins, who encouraged her to share more details as they walked. As they wandered through the neighborhood, Mia noticed the changes in Buddy's demeanor. While he was initially nervous and wary, he seemed to gain confidence with every step they took together. She could see the trust in his eyes as he walked beside her, a silent acknowledgement of their bond and the journey they were on. After visiting several homes and speaking with residents, they finally received a tip from a local shopkeeper. I saw a red car parked near the park a few days ago, he mentioned, pointing toward a street a few blocks down. A guy got out and was acting all strange. He looked like he was up to no good. With this new information, Jenkins and the team felt a renewed sense of urgency. They thanked the shopkeeper and quickly headed to the area described. As they drove, Mia's heart raced at the thought of finally uncovering the truth behind Buddy's abandonment. Do you think we'll find him? She asked Jenkins, her voice filled with hope. I believe we will, he replied confidently, giving her a reassuring smile. With your help, we're getting closer. Once they arrived at the location, the officers parked their cars and began to investigate the area. Mia scanned the street, searching for anything that might resemble the car they were looking for. Suddenly, Jenkins pointed toward a driveway where a familiar vehicle sat. That's it. That's the car. The adrenaline surged through Mia as they approached the car, parked haphazardly, showing signs of wear and tear. The officers approached cautiously, and Jenkins knocked on the door, while Mia stood back, her heart pounding in her chest. A man in his early 20s emerged, looking surprised to see the officers. What's going on? He asked, his tone defensive. Sir, we need to ask you some questions about a dog that was abandoned in this area, Jenkins replied firmly, keeping his posture relaxed but authoritative. Mia took a step closer, her heart racing as she recognized the man from the day Buddy had been thrown from the car. That's him, she thought, her stomach tightening. He's the one who hurt Buddy. Jenkins continued, we've received reports about a stray dog who was dumped, and we believe you may have information about it. The man hesitated, a nervous flicker in his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, he mumbled, avoiding their gaze. With a calm but firm voice, Jenkins pressed on. We have witnesses who saw you abandon a dog near the park. This isn't something we can just brush off. We need the truth. As the man squirmed under the officer's scrutiny, Mia stepped forward, gathering her courage. You threw my dog out of the car, she shouted, her voice steady despite the fear swirling inside her. He's not just a dog, he's my best friend. The man's expression shifted as he faced Mia, a mix of surprise and guilt crossing his features. I didn't mean to hurt him, he stammered. I thought he was just a stray. Mia shook her head, tears in her eyes. He's not just a stray. He has a family who loves him. You can't just abandon him because it's easier for you. In that moment, the gravity of the situation hung in the air. The man began to realize the impact of his actions, and the officers remained silent, allowing the weight of Mia's words to sink in. I'm sorry, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was wrong. With the situation unfolding, Jenkins seized the opportunity to ensure accountability. We're going to need to take a statement from you, and we will be reporting this incident, he said firmly. Abandoning an animal is a serious offense, and it has consequences. As the officers began to gather information and take notes, Mia felt a sense of relief wash over her. Buddy, now at her side, seemed to understand that they were taking steps to ensure his safety. She knelt down, wrapping her arms around him as they waited for the next steps to unfold. When the process was complete, the officers decided to escort the man to the station for further questioning. Mia felt a mix of emotions, anger, relief, and a sense of justice. She knew that Buddy would finally be safe, and she vowed never to let him out of her sight again. As they headed back to the police station, Mia whispered to Buddy, "You're home now, and I'll always take care of you." Buddy looked up at her, his tail wagging with joy, and in that moment, they both knew that they were meant to be together. With the support of the officers and the love of her community, Mia was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their bond was unbreakable. With Mia by their side, the officers embarked on a mission to find Buddy's former owner, filled with a mix of determination and compassion. As they drove through the neighborhood, Mia held Buddy close, whispering comforting words to him. We're going to find out what happened, Buddy. You're safe now, she said softly, petting his head. The officers couldn't help but smile at the bond forming between the girl and her dog. It was a beautiful testament to love and loyalty, something that made their hearts swell with hope. As they cruised along the streets, the officers stopped to ask questions of residents, showing Buddy's picture and sharing the story of his abandonment. Each inquiry came with a mixture of sympathy and disbelief. Who could leave such a sweet dog? One neighbor exclaimed, shaking her head. The community response was overwhelmingly supportive, with many residents offering to help search. A sense of camaraderie began to blossom, uniting them in their shared mission to protect Buddy. With every house they approached, Mia felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She didn't want Buddy to feel scared again, but she also understood that finding his old owner was crucial. What if we find them, and they don't want him back? She asked Officer Jenkins, her voice trembling. Jenkins glanced at her in the rearview mirror, giving her an encouraging smile. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. What matters now is that Buddy is with you, and we'll do everything we can to keep him safe. As they continued their search, they came upon the park where Buddy had been abandoned. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the playground. Children played on swings and slides, laughter filling the air, but Mia's heart was heavy with worry. She wanted to ensure Buddy never felt that fear again. The officers parked the car, and they all got out, scanning the area for any sign of the car that had left Buddy behind. Suddenly, a group of kids approached, having noticed the commotion. Mia recognized some of them from her school. "Hey, that's Buddy," one of the boys shouted, pointing excitedly. "We saw him before. He was so scared." The children gathered around, their eyes wide with concern for Buddy. Officer Jenkins took the opportunity to ask if they had seen anything suspicious or if they could help in any way. One girl stepped forward hesitantly. I saw a car that looked like that, she said, pointing to a photo Mia had pulled up on her phone. It was parked over by the trees last week. Someone got out and threw something at Buddy, and then they drove away really fast. Mia felt a chill run down her spine. Do you remember what kind of car it was? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The girl nodded. It was a dark blue sedan. I remember because it was really loud. Encouraged by this lead, the officers quickly organized a plan. They would drive back to the area where the girl had seen the car and ask around, hoping to gather more information. Mia felt a surge of determination. She was going to do everything in her power to help Buddy, her brave little friend who had shown so much courage. As they climbed back into the police car, Buddy looked at Mia, and she smiled at him, filled with renewed hope. We're going to find your old home, Buddy. Just hang in there a little longer. The officers nodded in agreement, all feeling the gravity of the mission before them. Together, they would seek justice for Buddy, and Mia would not rest until he was safe and sound, no longer just a stray but a beloved pet once more. With the police sirens wailing softly in the background, Officer Jenkins carefully approached the parked car where the teenager sat, nervously fidgeting in the driver's seat. Mia held Buddy tightly in her arms, whispering reassurances into his fur as they awaited the outcome of the officer's investigation. She felt a mix of anxiety and determination. This was not just about finding Buddy's previous owner, it was about making sure no other animal would have to suffer the same fate. The atmosphere was charged with tension as they prepared to confront the boy who had abandoned her beloved pet. The officer knocked on the window, and the teenager reluctantly rolled it down. Can you tell us why you threw this dog out of your car? Officer Jenkins asked, his voice calm but firm. The boy looked down, avoiding eye contact. I didn't want him anymore. He was too much trouble, he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia felt her heart drop at his words. How could anyone give up on such a loyal friend? He wasn't trouble, she said, her voice breaking. He was my best friend. He loved me, and he protected me. You don't just throw away a family member like that. The sincerity in her voice pierced through the tension, and even the officers felt the weight of her emotional plea. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Officer Jenkins placed a comforting hand on Mia's shoulder, trying to maintain a sense of order. You need to understand that abandoning an animal is not only cruel but also illegal, he explained gently. This dog deserves a loving home, not to be thrown away like trash. The boy shifted uncomfortably in his seat, guilt creeping across his face as he realized the gravity of his actions. I'm sorry, he finally said, looking up to meet Mia's gaze. I didn't think. I just didn't want him anymore. The regret in his voice was palpable, but Mia wasn't sure if it was enough to mend the pain he had caused. You could have taken him to a shelter or called for help, she replied, tears welling in her eyes. Instead, you hurt him and left him alone. As the officers took down the boy's information and issued a warning, Mia felt a sense of closure wash over her. She turned to Buddy, who was looking up at her with those big, trusting eyes. You're safe now, Buddy. I promise I'll always take care of you, she whispered, hugging him tightly. With the situation resolved, Officer Jenkins invited Mia and Buddy back to the station for a small celebration. The officers had arranged for a few treats, and they all gathered in the break room, excited to celebrate the reunion of Mia and Buddy. The station was filled with laughter and warmth as everyone shared stories about their pets, creating an atmosphere of community and compassion. Mia watched Buddy devour the treats, his tail wagging happily as he basked in the attention and love. The officers couldn't help but smile at the sight, realizing how much this little dog had touched their lives. In that moment, Buddy was no longer just a stray, he was a hero. As Mia left the station, holding Buddy close, she felt a renewed sense of hope. She knew they would face new adventures together, and she was determined to show the world how love and kindness could change lives. Buddy had taught her that no matter how lost someone might feel, there is always a path back home, one paved with love, loyalty, and the courage to care. And if you like the story, remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell.